Today's guest conversation is with a World Series champion, a right-handed pitcher who spent 14 seasons in the big leagues and now owns and operates Performance Pitching Academy in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Mr. Chad Durbin, here's episode 66 of the Baseball Forward podcast. Mr. Durbin, welcome back to the Baseball Forward podcast, my friend.
Hey, great to be back. Appreciate it.
And looking good. That office is legit, I gotta say. I want to dig into what those baseballs represent behind you at some point. But I also want to say welcome, Mr. Coach Jim Schwanke, to the show today. He's joining us. Chad, you must be a pretty important guy.
Yeah. That's the relationship with Chad goes way back to 1996.
Ooh, yeah,
when he was a high school basketball, baseball shortstop pitcher, and really good athlete. Really wanted him in the LSU program, and unique set of circumstances stopped that from happening.
Okay, so let's fire away right into it. Because, I mean, Chad, you're a World Series champion. You spent 14 seasons in the big leagues. The stories you have are phenomenal. And I've heard Coach Schwanke tell this story, bits and pieces of it. So, Jim, I want you to lead off today. Chad Durbin grew up in Louisiana, and he was recruited by LSU. Didn't end up going to LSU, but pretty unique story. And I want you to play leadoff today with us, Coach Schwanke, and tell us the story of legendary Coach Skip Bertman recruiting Chad Durbin and kind of what surrounded all of that.
Well, I inherited a complete team when Skip hired me, and the realization of that was the whole team was going to be gone. So I had to recruit, and get after it. And luckily we had guys in Baton Rouge and Louisiana that obviously had grown up around the program, and Chad was a focus, and it was pretty evident that he was going to develop into something pretty special. And it was pretty clear that pro teams were showing a lot of interest. I had three guys that I had really a difficult time making sure that I could try and get them. Corey Thurman, Chad Durbin, and Cedric Harris were all in unique situations. Well, Chad, we made an offer to Chad. I think he accepted it. I think he committed. And then it came to fruition that the pro baseball guys were getting a little interested. And so I asked Skip to go watch him pitch. And Skip was one of two trips that I sent him out to watch a player. And in the 5 years that I was there. And that was a Tuesday night. We're playing New Orleans away down in New Orleans at the University of New Orleans. And so Chad was pitching. I said, Skip, go watch him throw. So he went to watch him throw I think he was in his full uniform. Right, Chad?
He was in full uni, and I was supposed to pitch, and our head coach put me at shortstop instead of pitcher. So Skip stuck around for a couple ABs, which were good ABs, but he said, you're gonna be a heck of a pitcher.
He comes walking into batting practice at New Orleans. He drove down in his Lincoln and walks in and goes, hey, I just didn't see it, Jim. And I thought he meant he didn't see him pitch well. Now I find out in hindsight that he never saw him pitch. So he wouldn't up the offer. Wow. And so Chad Durbin was a third-round draft pick, the Kansas City Royals. Corey Thurman drafted and signed, even though he was the valedictorian and said he was going to sign for over $500,000. He signed for much less than that. And Cedric Harris, who had to just navigate his core classes to get eligible, became a 3-year starter for us at LSU and was a great player. So I lost Chad Durbin to pro baseball and Corey Thurman to pro baseball, and we got a starting center fielder who was a great player. But that was one time that I sent Skip out and didn't work out well. So in 5 years, that might have been one of maybe two mistakes he made as a head coach.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's super interesting to hear talking with Chad Durbin on episode 66 of the Baseball Forward podcast. Chad, I want to hear your recollection of this story because listen, I mean, you growing up in the 80s and 90s, Skip Bertman was it. LSU was it. They still are it. So when Coach Burtman rolls up to your game in full LSU uniform, I mean, did you know that was going to happen? Give us your recollection of that recruiting incident.
So, and obviously when we get this far away from 1996, there's a little bit of a different version from each of us. I thought it was right after I had called them and said, hey, Jim Wells, Mitch Gaspard, the guys at Alabama see me as a two-way guy, and they offered me 100%. And I'm going to go to Alabama. I just don't want to give up playing a position when I think I'm as good as some of the guys get out on the field. Confidence as a kid, but look, at the end of the day, their evaluation of me hitting was right. I wasn't good enough at the end of the day. But what I remember is running out to shortstop, and my third baseman, buddy of mine named Mike Surratt, he said, hey, look behind the dish. And I was like, what? He's like, it's Skip. And I was like, I couldn't see him because he's walking around the bleachers right behind the plate. And he walked up, he had his whites on and came up and sat first row, wide hip kind of stance where he sits and gives the finger point and didn't talk to anybody, man, gave some waves. But the WAFB, WBRZ trucks rolled right behind first base. There was room at our high school, Woodlawn High School. It's no longer there anymore, but there's a little gravel road behind the bleachers for football. And they rolled up right behind, got the cameras out. So every throw I made to first base and warm-ups was to the cameras and the trucks and all that stuff. And I actually went, I think I went 3 for 3 with a walk and like 6 bags, stole home twice. Like I was out to prove myself. And at the end of the day, he was there to see me pitch, and I didn't pitch and it didn't work out. But I will say this, over the course of it all, the problem that I had, my mistake was moving down here in 1990 from Illinois. I was a Cubs fan. St. Louis Cardinals were a blast to watch. I wanted to be a pro. And if at the end of the day, I would have been sold on how coming to LSU would have made me a pro, I get it now. It's like, of course, this is the minor leagues, but this is college version of it. And you're going to be a big leaguer if you're good enough. But I just wanted to see if I was good enough to go play pro ball. And a little bit of it wanted to get out of Baton Rouge. But, man, the LSU product here, I was lucky enough to have a couple buddies that had purple seats behind the dish, and I would go with their families. I'd get a big, Coke and some seeds and watch Todd Walker and Russ Johnson, all these studs go out there. And it was just a great I'll say this, the travel ball, the Saturday, Sundays that we give away down here now, I was going to those games because we played on Tuesday and Thursday night at 13 and 14 years old. Yeah. So I was able to go and watch LSU play and really just soak that in. It was such a high level of baseball and the energy and all that stuff. We all know about all that stuff. But in retrospect, I don't know what kind of advice I'd have given myself. I know I would have told me to go to college.
Wow.
If I were being advised, without a question. My mom said it, all the people that knew me, but I had a little bit of that, lead vocals and, air the guitar. I wanted to go see if I was good enough to hit the road. And if I, knowing what I know now, I know some stats now that would hurt my feelings, my little 18-year-old feelings. Knowing if you're in the top 4 rounds as a right-handed pitcher out of high school, the odds of you getting to the big leagues for more than a year, not for 5 or even a cup of coffee, for more than a year, it's 17%.
Wow.
And that's the top 4 or 5 rounds. If you take the first round out of it, I'm pretty sure those numbers drop significantly. Right-handed arm out of high school, left-handed arm out of high school, a little bit better, but it's not good either. You go to college for 3 years and get drafted, and it runs into, in those top 4 or 5 rounds, it runs into the 44 percentile.
Wow.
And it's just kind of crazy. If somebody put that down, no more needs to be said. Tell all the scouts that they can go somewhere else. I wouldn't even considered it. But at the time, you're 18, and my mom and dad are split up, so they're doing the best they could to try to just figure me out. And whatever you want to do, buddy, go get it. We think you're going to be successful at whatever. So I think about all of that, and advisors now. I mean, I had people advising me, but not like a former agent or an agent or anything like that. Sure. It was just people I knew.
Sure.
And at the end of the day, I wish I'd have sat down with Skip and Jim and really just said, okay, sell me on how this makes me a big leaguer. Because I think the Royals drafted me, and they drafted Corey Thurman, who we mentioned earlier, in the 4th round. I was 3rd, he was 4th. So we went Didn't do LSU. Let's go see if we can make it. And we both made it to the big leagues to give them a little tip of the hat on how they scouted and recruited. You know, the guys that they lost, Joe Lawrence, and like just a ton of really talented guys, all made the big leagues. So every guy that they lost to the draft made it, and it's just a good tip of the hat to the scouting and recruiting side that these guys did.
Well, yeah, on the same token, you made it to the big leagues as a 21-year-old.
I made it quick, probably too quick, but I made it quick.
And if you would have done that in this era, we tell this to kids all the time. If you sign in high school and make great progress, the same kind of progress you needed to make in college to turn yourself into a first rounder, you're going to play in the big leagues and make big league salary maybe 2 or 3 more years at the end of your career. And so it's a flip side. You know, you gotta monitor that out and measure that. And the fact that you made it that quickly is a testament to really how talented, how good an athlete you were or are or were at the time.
I want to dig into this a little bit with both you guys here, because listen, it's not every day you get to talk about the evaluation side of thing. And Jim, you're one of the ultimate evaluators of baseball talent, in my opinion, that's out there. And Chad, you were a big leaguer, for crying out loud. I mean, you were it. So I want Jim, from your Coach Schwanke, from your side, when you're watching Chad Durbin play as a high school player, what was it about Chad Durbin as an evaluator that you were like, boy, that's different?
Well, first of all, like he said, he was a shortstop. I think he was all-state or MVP in the state that year as a position player.
That a boy, Chad.
I may be wrong.
That's right. Yeah. And I give Joe Lawrence a hard time. He was a first rounder and a hell of an athlete who played for Nick Saban after he retired from his baseball career at LSU. So, but he was the first rounder, but he didn't get the MVP at shortstop at All-State. So I get a giggle out of that because he's arguably a better athlete than me, but we're pretty close.
So Joe, strangely enough, Joe, when you go watch guys, Ross, I'm watching Joe Lawrence, and he would bobble a ball and mishandle the ball. And the athleticism was off the charts, but he's not, Omar Vizquel, a shortstop. So he's going to have to make a position change, right? And then you're watching Durbin pitch, and then you watch him move as an athlete and on the basketball court. You go, that guy's going to have body control. That guy's going to be able to deliver the baseball consistently. And then he gets out in pro ball, and he does that. And I think there was a story, and I may be wrong about this, but I think I'm right. In Wichita, when you were in AA, they took away a pitch or two from you to develop something. Well, we don't have that chance in college. Certainly not now. These guys are so geared to winning. I remember Skip saying, hey, we got to lose tonight. And these guys are getting too cocky.
Wow.
We would not try and lose a game, but we change things up. In pro ball, they took a pitch from you. Didn't they take a pitch away from you in AA so you would develop another pitch?
They took away all 3 of my best pitches.
What?
4-seam that was probably 91 to 94 with some heavy, what we'd call the day, that vertical jump and all that right at the top of the zone. Took that away, wanted me to learn to sink the ball. You'll get your 4-seam back, but we need you to learn how to run the ball a little bit. And I was over the top a good bit at that time, and it was hard to throw a sinker. I just couldn't make it happen. It would cut. I would have to manipulate it. It was bad. They took away the curveball, which was my second best off-speed pitch. My changeup was my best off-speed pitch, but they wanted me to throw sinker, and they wanted me to learn a cutter slider. And it was so hard for me to do, but it made me throw strikes. It made me learn, like, if I'm going to have kind of a horse crap set of pitches, I better get ahead in counts and locate and all that stuff. And so it was about a 6-start stretch where they just said, hey, we want you to really work on this. What I didn't know is they're trying to get me to the big leagues. AA to the big leagues in my head at the time at 21 was, a far cry. I didn't think it was going to happen. So the development, and I had great coaches there, and they kind of, about 3 starts in, when you're frustrated, you're going 5, giving up 4, going 6, giving up 5, going 3 2/3, giving up 5. You're just getting frustrated because you want to go eat innings and be the guy. And then I'm in the middle of an outing, and I mean, it's probably a 10 a.m. kids' day or something like that. It's Wichita. The sun's beating down like it is in Baton Rouge right now. It's hot. And Paul Phillips was my catcher. He looks in the dugout. He looks back out, and he gives boom, 2. I'm like, I looked like a dog when you drop food on the table and it looks forward on the floor, turned its head. I looked at him and I was like, what?
Yeah.
And he's like, 2. And I'm through one of the best curveballs of my life. And then I went on a run of about 35 to 40 innings, gave about a run or 2 all the way through the playoffs.
Wow.
And then, you know, eventually, I mean, that's how I finished the year, but they let me have all 3 back. I ended up, you know, starting all the playoff first games and went to the Arizona Fall League, got a call up. Like all of that happened inside of that window. And,
Wow.
you know, I felt like Forrest Gump when the braces came off.
Yeah.
I was so happy to play catch with those pitches. I was happy to jump out on the mound, and it kind of, you know, 21, it's not like I was, you know, dragging my knuckles out there. I wasn't worn out, but I was frustrated. And it was that development. I think about that sometimes when somebody just runs to their best pitch all the time because you have to. And that's part of the gig right now. I mean, if you're going to be in the SEC or you're going to be, you know, on a high-end travel team in the summer at 17 or 16, you got to keep earning your spot every time out, and the development struggles. Whereas they were like, we don't care what your ERA is. I think if we looked right now, it's probably I got called up after going like 8-11 with a 4.7 or a 4.9 in Double A.
Wow.
But I got called up because I got better, I developed, and by the end of the year, I wasn't the same human at any level as I was in the first 2 months. And so that's part of the, like he said, there's some things that happen and on both ends. Like you learn how to win, you learn how to compete, you learn how to be a man. You have a network coming from an LSU or a school like that, and you go into pro ball and it is like, hey, we don't care about the wins and losses. It's cool if we win. Doesn't really matter if we lose, but how are you going to handle both? But we're going to get better. You know, we want you to try to throw, you know, glove side this, or we want you to mess around in a 2-2 count. You have to do this. And it's okay. Well, let's try it out for a couple weeks, and you have the luxury to do so. I just think it's really, you know, there's the art to coaching that comes in there differently and it's just as important as the art of, hey, let's teach these guys how to win or how to handle a loss so that we win.
So let's say this, Coach Schwanke. I want to elaborate on that. That's really, really good. Man, that's really interesting. Is okay. So in going back to the evaluation part of it, something in you probably knew that. Did you understand that he was like, and I put it in air quotes, that he was like mentally tough, that he had the ability to adapt, that he was a super ultra competitive guy? Like, because hearing Chad say that story about them taking those pitches away, that tells me that this guy just goes, and like he's not going to stop. Is that something that you see when you're out evaluating talent? Is it something that because what I want the audience to understand through hopefully this story is the intangibles of what the heck that took to get through that period of time for Durbin.
Well, first of all, back in the day, you know, we didn't have these recruiting services and these select organizations and these tournament organizations. And so you had to go watch the guy play.
Yep.
You had to go into the basketball gym and watch the kid get knocked around and get undercut and how he reacted to a bad call away from baseball. And it's one of the great things about Oklahoma, where I coached at Oklahoma State and Louisiana. The kids are tougher by nature because they play a lot of different sports and they compete at a lot of different levels. And, you know, you go out there and you watch a Blair Barbier or Ryan Theriot play, and it's just a little different. Like they make plays that they're supposed to make, and they do things to help you win. So now, you know, it's velo readings and data points and different things in the world that these college recruiters look at. I went and watched basketball games. I watched him play shortstop, but I fell in love with him on the mound just because he had no fear. And Ryan Theriot had no fear. And Blair Barbier had no fear. And those guys were all part of what we wanted to do at LSU. And now, I swear, I mean, I don't know how these guys do this in college, but they'll be in their office and they'll make a recruiting decision based on a video clip. And, you know, our guys in our office, we have all kinds of data that we have access to that allows us to boil things down to 1 or 2 things to help our players, right? And so you almost feel like you continue to coach because the data points for guys talking on TV all the time, it'll drive you nuts. And it's pretty clear to me that guys that can still pitch. I mean, Scooble was a 9th round draft pick. I mean, come on.
Yep.
And so you got to be able to find guys that'll compete and pay the price and make the sacrifice and handle what he handled in Double-A the right way. Because there's a lot of guys that won't do that right now. We have phone calls from clients. Hey, this guy wants me to do this. I said, do it. Right.
Ross, building off of that. And
Yeah.
So Dennis Woody was the scout who drafted me with the Royals.
Okay.
And after my high A season in the Carolina League, just a great league. It's really where prospects start to take off. I went out. I think I had 11-7 with like a 2.7, second in the league in strikeouts. We won the championship. I started game 1 of each level of the playoffs. So to me, I had conquered that league in my head.
Okay.
And so I was like, okay, I'm going to Double-A next year without a doubt, and had it set in my head. And Dennis Woody said, hey, Chad, he called up the house, left a message. We didn't have cell phones just yet. And left a message, hey, I'd love to meet you for a burger or something. So we met at, Brubacher's or somewhere here in town. And he's sitting down, we're at a high top, and he's like, hey, the organization wants to send you back to the Carolina League.
Mm.
And I said, well, what the heck do I need to do in the Carolina League to prove myself any better than I did last year? There was a little struggle, and then I hit some pavement, and then I struggled again, hit some pavement. Like, that's how it's supposed to be from a development standpoint, right? And he's like looking at me because the guy knew talent, and he was just passing on. I mean, don't kill the messenger sometimes, but that was the organization's view was we've got Jeff Austin from Stanford. We've got Chris George out of Texas. We got some guys that can really play. We'd like to get you all together. And I didn't care. I'm like, let them come find me. Come get me in Double-A. I'm okay. And I said, Dennis, I'm okay with struggling. I am okay with getting popped in the face. I am okay with having to learn the hard way. I know these guys are bigger, stronger, and faster because they're older. I don't care. Like, put me there. And if I'm not good enough, send my rear end back down to A-ball and I'll figure it out. But like, let me struggle there. Don't worry about it. And he said, like, I'll go back. I'll relay the message. Just know that this is kind of the angle they want to take. And I found out later on, Allard Baird and the other guys with the Royals were, really like, okay, well, let's see how it works out in spring. Let's put them up there. If it doesn't go well, we'll make a pivot. We can talk to them one-on-one. But ultimately, like what we just talked about, me struggling helped me handle the big leagues. And I think the extra sports, the playing basketball, I was the 6'2" athletic kid that had to go guard a bunch of, guys headed to, D1 basketball programs. And, hey, we're boxing 1, you got them. Let's keep them under 20 if you can.
Yep.
And you're going to get beat. And how are you going to handle it? How are you going to bounce back? Are you going to get tired in the fourth quarter, mentally and physically? Are you going to be able – like, that's the stuff you need to know whether that guy can go out in the 6th or 7th inning and keep making pitches after 105 pitches and stay focused. And, like, all that stuff matters. And from an evaluation standpoint, only way I can see that on the travel circuit stage is – and we had some talented kids on Cade's team last year, JoJo Parker and Jacob Parker. Marshall Luke, some really talented kids from around here, a bunch more that I'm not naming. But what I saw is how they act when they get the big hit. I don't see a lot of those guys that are gonna be potential big leaguers pounding their chest after every good AB. I don't see them, making a nice play and like they know the camera's on them. I really see them, quality of work and being good teammates, how they handle. A bad strikeout against a guy, an Arkansas commit versus a Mississippi State commit. Yeah, you're going to get out sometimes, buddy. How are you going to handle it? What do you say to the guys in the dugout about what you saw? And that was, to me, what separated some of these guys. Because if you just watch the highlight reels, it's the highlight reels. Nobody posts bad pictures of themselves on their social media. So how do you weave through all that? And I think you have to see somebody get hit in the mouth to see if they'll put their gloves up. Or are they just going to, or is it all a look at me thing? Because, I mean, it's hard not to do that when you get rewarded for it so much. But the guys that are going to last make it look easy. There is an effortless athleticism to the guys that project really well. That's what you chase when you're looking for talent. And, hey, this guy makes everything look difficult. He's really good. He puts up good numbers. I appreciate the work ethic, but maybe he's not worth a 3rd or a 2nd or a 1st round pick. Let's sneak him in a little bit later. But I think he might make it. but it's going to be on sheer will, maybe not the talent. So it's all interesting to me the way you said that, because it's really how it was, and the only way to do it back then.
I am talking with Chad Durbin on episode 66 of the Baseball Forward podcast today. Chad, I'm oh man, I want to, and Coach Schwanke, I want your take on this too, but we're kind of along the line of you got to be willing to fail regularly in baseball. And I think that's kind of you hear that all the time. You got to be able to accept failure. I was having a conversation with a kid the other day, and he was talking about me. Hey, I've been slumping a little bit, and it kind of hit me in the face. I was like, I feel like hitting is just one big slump. Like, the reality of hitting is you're just always in a slump. I mean, if you have a good year, let's say in college, you're 4 for 10, you're hitting 400, that's still, you're failing the majority of the time. So I want you guys to give me your take on failure. Advice for players now that are going through this stuff, because man, we live in a showcase world, and it is so hard to understand failure in the context of the way a lot of the kids play it these days. So let's start with Chad. I want your advice to young players that are coming up that are wanting to make a go at this. Like, how do you recommend they go about handling failure?
Well, so in our little academy, or even in the summer circuit when I'm coaching with Knights Nation, when you get around guys and you're able to open some dialogue, and they have a bad moment, they fail. The first is, okay, why did I fail? What happened? Is it something I can control? Is it something that I couldn't control? And if it's something I can control, how do I learn from it? How do I get better? When I'm telling young kids, a failure is like a turd in the toilet. Do you just leave it there? No, you flush it, you get rid of it. Like, it is what it is. The older guys, obviously, they might giggle at that, but they might also think this guy's, he's a little bit weird. But the older guys, it's really, it's tethered. Like, the failure is tethered to the next success. You're really not going to stretch yourself out and try something new. The hardest part about coaching really is trying to coach somebody when they're doing well. They don't want to listen. It doesn't matter who you are, former, long-time Division I stud coach or a former big leaguer. They don't want to hear it when they're 4 for 5 with 3 doubles and a homer, and they lined out in their 5th at bat. And you want to go say something about, hey, this. They don't want to hear that. They're like, I'm a stud right now. Yeah. It is the failure that allows opportunity. So I tether it to opportunity, because otherwise you're just not going to be willing to learn or get better. And sometimes maybe that was the Royals, hey man, we need this kid to fail. So let's pull the rug out and see how he handles it. And I think, that failure to me is the only way success is really going to keep going, is you get knocked off the horse and you figure out why you got knocked off the horse. And if you don't have the answer, then get back on and let's see what you do differently, or if it's all the same, if it's just different and it's an anomaly. But that's really, the failure is tethered to opportunity. The opportunity to not get better is also there. So if you fail and you don't handle it well, then that's another failure in itself.
Wow. Jim, Coach Schwanke, let's hear your take on that. What is your advice to the young players coming up in handling failure?
Move on to the next pitch, the next play. Next, learn how to go from, it's digital, right? I failed, it's over, right? And that's really hard to do in this world, because there's a lot of people that will give you alibis. And so, one of the tenets of the programs I was involved with as a coach and dealing with the young kids that I coached over here in a select deal is, I don't really give a rat's behind what happened. It's about next. Yeah. All right. You get a great, you hit a 2-run double and you put us up by a run, and then you make an error. Okay. Next. Right. If you have a bad at bat and you make an error, what happened? You weren't ready. You gotta flush it. We had a ceremonial, Skip Burtman had a little toilet in the bath in the dugout, for God's sakes, where guys would flush shit. Pardon my. And it, it worked from a ceremonial standpoint. But you don't want to give kids alibis and let kids feel failure when they're 8 years old. I mean, my wife, God bless Willie, got knocked on his rear end by a guy at third base. And Everybody was concerned about him, and all I said to him is, "You can be the tagger or the taggee, buddy." And for the rest of his life, he laid the hammer on guys that came in first, right? And so you let the kid learn the lesson, and you give them advice on how to handle it, and then you sit back and watch and see if they can handle it. And if they can't, they're not going to make it in this game.
It's as simple as that. Like, wow, that I love hearing that. And you know what? Something I wrote down is you said next, and kind of piggybacking off of what Chad said is what you said about the other guys on your son's team. How they handle the success is almost equally important, because they're handling the success the same way. Next, so what? I was supposed to do that. I was supposed to do that. I was supposed to get the hit. That's what I do. That's what I do. And the failure is part of it. Next. I love hearing that from you two gentlemen. Talking with Chad Durbin here today on the Baseball Forward podcast, episode 66. Chad, appreciate you coming on again. Just always love hearing your brain work. Man, there's so many things that I want to talk pitching with you, specifically pitching with you. I want to talk about, I don't want to I want you to give me the best. You're a former big leaguer, 14 years in the big leagues. You pitched in an era, let's just call it what it is, some of the best hitters that ever played, and they use stuff, and we all get that, okay? But some of the best hitters that ever existed that walked on this planet, that was your era. And you had to navigate that stuff. And it was feel, and it was competitive, and it was willpower and all that stuff. That's what I feel of that generation. And now we're in a generation. I'm not saying it's bad. It's not my decision or it's not my opinion doesn't matter. Just put it that way. But we're in a world of analytics. We're in a world of numbers. We're in a world of it's a little bit different than what it was when you played. So I'm curious to get your take as kind of, I'm going to put it in air quotes because you're not old, my friend, but as an old head, as a guy that's been there, done that, I'm curious of what your take is on the current state of the game, like pitching, numbers, video, analytics, feel. Like, are you good with it? Do you wish it was? Where are you at with everything?
I think while I was playing, the new stuff that would come out, whether it was driveline or slow-mo cap or whatever it was, that, if I looked at them all as tools. And there's different tools you can use to get different jobs done and all that stuff. And it comes down to, I guess I'm coming from a coach's brain. And as a pitcher, you're kind of your own coach, and you work with other coaches, and you're, other guys in the bullpen where you're kind of, hey man, you look like you're leaning over a little bit more. You dropped your slot, because you need feedback, and you're not watching every pitch on video, or you weren't. Now, there's 10 people watching every pitch on video, including your warmups. But wow. I think what happens now is what is good, what is great. And so a guy will throw a pitch in a bullpen or in a game, and it'll be at the limits of what he's capable of. I hit 95 today, or I had 22 inches of vertical break, or I threw this changeup and it did this on the metric side. And a lot of times me and Tyler knock in the other guy that runs PPA with me. Well, was it a strike? What did the guy swing at it, or was it just a really cool metric that you threw out there on one pitch? And I was actually listening to a podcast the other day. I have to look at what it was, but it was Leo Mazzoni talking about and this. Let me go full circle with this, but he was talking about 0-0 counts balls in play. What do you think the big league average was against Maddox or Glavine, or even against just the league? And in my head, I was like, man, 190, 220, 250, it's low. It's below 100. It is. And against Maddox, I think it was like they were 50 for 600 off him in the one tranche of data. It was 75 of 650 against Glavine. It was 6 of 70 against Rocker, who was a reliever. So, you start to think about that, and you start to look back, how many guys just lit up the first pitch I threw? And it was rare. Guess what happens though? You have this recency bias, or this DNA inside of our bodies that says, if I throw a first pitch and Scott Rowland hits it into the second deck, that's what I remember. I don't remember the 50 to 100 the next guy's up that got out or fouled it off or whatever it was. So that's one piece of the puzzle. And I always say this, and when I was playing, I would use chipper to the young rookies coming up. I'd use chipper. I was like, which chipper do you want to face? Do you want to face the 1-0, 2-0, 2-1, 3-1 count chipper? Or do you want to face the 0-1, 0-2, 1-2 chipper? Because they're two totally different human beings.
Wow.
They're not as aggressive. They're passive. Like, you control this. And so, and this is where I come full circle to all the new age stuff. When do you think you're going to throw your most elite pitches? It's going to be an 0-2 and 1-2 counts, or 0-1. You get 2-0 and 2-1 and 3-1, and your butthole slams shut, and you can't function the same way. And so that's what I would see is, like, guys like, man, I'm not throwing as hard as I was in AAA. I know why. Because you're 1-0 and 2-0 to every big leaguer, and they're thrilled. They're fighting over the bat rack. They're lining up to the interstate to get up there and hit off you. Your stuff's better than mine, but I'm in every 0-1 count because I'm not living that life anymore. Yes. And I see success from guys that are, mediocre on the talent level, but man, they just pound the zone and pound the zone and pound the zone. And for a coach, you're kind of like, you know what? I can live with that. And then what happens is those same guys that pound the zone, they pound the weight room, and they pound the workouts, and they pound the books, and they end up having good grades, high ACT scores. They lift hard, they work hard, and the Doppler effect comes into, and boom, it's louder, and now they're bigger and they're stronger. And all of a sudden they're like, well, how did you make it? Well, I didn't make it yesterday. I made it 10 years ago when I started this process. And I think that's where the tools are valuable for the guys that speak those languages. If that's how you have to speak to the kid, then you need to be able to use the tool. If you've got to make an argument on what pitch is better, their four seamer, their sinker, or their curveball, or their slider, or their changeup, or this new split that they're working with. If you've got to say, my eyeballs tell me that the four seam's kind of very hittable, and your changeup isn't very good, but man, that split is. And maybe you're an east to west guy and you're not a north to south guy, but all your buddies throw north south because your coach teaches it. There's just so many reasons why the tools can validate what our eyes see as older coaches. And then you got to create a ledger. Basically, you're an accountant. You're like, okay, I know the numbers say this. What does it say on the other side of the ledger? How do I rationalize this to another human being?
What would you have majored in if you would have gone to college?
I was going in as an engineer. I mean, down here you want to get in.
Go.
So that, but I'm a long cry from that guy that would probably be right.
No, you're not
and doing all that stuff now. But.
No, you're not. I sit there and I listen to you talk about the game of baseball, and that's what I love about. It's not a coincidence why you made it, and I'm just going to say it, why I didn't make it, because I love seeing the way your mind works. So don't tell me you could go rip off you probably wouldn't want a Harvard degree at this point, but you could probably go rip off a degree at this point and become an engineer if you wanted to. I love the way your mind works, my
Appreciate
friend.
It.
Talking with Chad Durbin, Baseball Forward Podcast, episode 66. Coach Schwanke, let's go back to the idea of watching guys and using our eyes. And I want to go, you always tell me you got to see guys, you got to see the way they handle themselves and versus the analytics and everything. And I want your simple take, because I want to get this on camera. I want your simple take on where are you at with analytics and old school let's just call it old school versus new school. Like, where is your mind with where the game of baseball is at right now?
Well, I mean, it's the same old story. You can analyze a guy's curveball, and you can get all of this data, and it got a great shape, and it rotates so fast. Or you can get the old scout will say, when I know I got a good curveball I'm looking at is when he throws it and the guy swings and misses it, right? And so it's that simple. But the deal is that this data is everywhere, and it can help. I mean, it helps us with our clients, with information that we generate for them and for pro clubs, and hitting dynamics. When you chase the zone, well, that's pretty easy to measure, right? And guess what? If Chad Durbin knows that I'm going to swing at pitches 2 balls off the plate, in or out, up and down, he's got me by the cojones, right?
Yeah.
But if he hits my bat, I'm going to hit the living hell out of it because I got great exit velo, right? So that's great. So do I handle the zone? By the same token can the guy on the mound throw a 2-0 pitch when he needs to for a strike? Right? That was one of Skip's big deals. We had 1-0 pitch. Can he throw a strike to get back into the count where it becomes even Steven, And when I get the ball in the zone and I swing at it, do I miss it? Well, that's a huge thing. I mean, I've gone to watch a lot of guys play, and they'll get 4 pitches in a doubleheader and foul them straight back. And then he'll get one in the 7th inning and hit the living hell out of it. But he missed 4 pitches that he should have hit, right? It was his best swing. It was right in the middle of the plate, and he missed it. Well, guess what? That guy's going to have a hard time playing in the big leagues when you might get 1 or 2 pitches a game like that.
Wow. And
you can't miss it, right? And so that's kind of what you go and you try and see that. And the analytics now, I mean, I literally, with the stuff we have now, I can get information on guys. I can watch 6 games at my house at the same time.
Yep.
And then I can call our guys in the office and say, I need to see what the so-and-so's analytics were last night. He threw 5 2/3 shutout innings. We want to amplify that for the player so he knows exactly what he did, right? And it becomes his, because I'm sure Chad can tell you go in pro baseball, as a hitter, you're going to deal with, 15 different hitting instructors in your career. You're going to deal with 12 pitching coaches, right? You got to internalize this stuff for yourself, because you're the only one on the mound in front of 25, 40,000 people, or in the batter's box. It's you. It's you on the line. And if you can teach a guy and help a guy to understand what makes him best most often, then you're really helping a kid.
I want to, Chad, I want to get your quick take on this right now, because it came to my mind. I want to know what your mind thinks of 2-0. What are you thinking on a 2-0? What are you thinking when you're 2-0 on somebody?
Well, obviously it depends on the hitter, but my default setting the last 7 or 8 years of my career was I'm throwing a cutter on the outer half of the plate. It's going to catch white. It's moving away from the right-handed hitter. You got to do a lot right to stay on something that's 89 miles an hour moving away from you. That's why lefties are so good against righties. If you hit it, you hit it. But I try to stay away from damage.
Okay.
Against a lefty, I'm probably throwing a sinker or a changeup, something moving away from them. If they got it, if they want to barrel this really hard in an aggressive count, I want them to do it to the opposite field. And both of those, and it comes down to command. I missed with 2 pitches, and maybe they're the same pitches. Maybe I throw the same pitch a third time and I land it. I'm willing to bet that I'm going to land that one. But Kenny Rogers was the one that he told me, like, yeah, you have best pitches according to the world, and then you have the best pitches in your own head in crunch time. You get into the 6th inning as a starter, you got an out, bases loaded, and you're in a 3-2 count against the 3-hole. You've got to know what your best pitch to your best location is to that guy. And you've got to know which side of the plate, and in mine, in the beginning of my career, I had no idea. I wasn't sure what I was capable of. I was kind of going to go with whatever the catcher called. There wasn't as much conviction. Back half of my career, I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and the conviction was there. And I really hit it, don't hit it, but I'm going to throw my pitch to my spot, and you do what you want to with it.
When you hear a pitcher, because I hear that a lot, and I was told it a lot, and I felt it a lot, but I want your take on it. The word conviction is an important word in pitching. And it might be one of the most important words in all of pitching. Yeah. But when I say conviction to you, what does conviction mean as a pitcher?
It means confidence in the whole situation. There's a sports psychology angle to this, because a lot of times when the catcher suggests a certain pitch, it might be a pitch that's on your short list of, we might want to go with this here, versus I know exactly what I want to do here. And you're like, okay, it's one of these 2 pitches to this location, and your catcher calls one of them, conviction. We're both on the same page. Versus, and sometimes the lack of conviction, like, I just don't feel it right here. You've got to be able to, especially with this pitch clock thing, convince yourself that it is the right pitch in a short amount of time. Or you better have a plan for what your best pitch is, because we need to make decisions at light speed. We're playing, video games out here because we've got to make a decision really quick. You can call timeout, step off, you can pick over, buy yourself a second, but it's all happening just a little bit faster now. And I think back, Aaron Nola, I'll use him as an example. He would pick over 3, 4, 5 times to first while he thought through what he wanted to do and bought himself a little time to not be so gassed, and some of the art of that is gone. So the conviction is the confidence that we're all on the same page. And I know I can make this pitch because I've made it before. I've had success. And a lot of times I don't think conviction really exists until you've had the success failure along the way to know, hey, this is going to work out.
Wow. Just the trial and error. Are there moments in your career that you think of when we talk about the word conviction? Ooh, when I let it go, boy, that just, it felt perfect. Are there moments that I can say like that to you that you can go back to and say, that was one of those moments. That was one of those moments. Do you remember specific pitches?
I remember like the cause and effect. I remember, throwing David Wright a 4-seam away and him hitting an opposite field home run. And like the watching his swing and the intent and how his hips moved and everything, watching it on film later, revisiting it before the next time I faced him, because I was in Detroit. I was with Detroit. He was a Met, obviously. And then the next time I faced him, I was a Philly with, a bunch of people around who thought they had all the answers. But I'm thinking, I'm not getting him out there. That's the way he moves against my stuff. And so my conviction was, I'm going to go find a bunch of ground balls or bad swings or broken bats on the ball moving towards him from a righty. And that's how I plan on getting him out. But let me go find validation in other people getting them out there. And I did, and I found it. And it was Roy Halladay would get him out in there. Other guys, I'm like, okay, well, can I do that? And I mean, ultimately, I think he was probably one for those last 15 off me. And it was almost always something moving towards him on the inner half of the plate, because I really thought his swing path, everything worked, against a guy like me. It worked opposite field, and he'd stay inside the ball. We had a rough time staying inside. So I say conviction in that, regard. It was kind of a bundle of the whole story working together. Is there was failure, and then there was learning from the failure, and there was, application of the next step. And he said, he joked around with him later on. We were in the same fantasy football league and all that. And David Wright's such a stud human being. He said, I looked for that 4-seam away for the rest of my career against you. I was just waiting for that pitch again because I knew I was going to hit one into the bullpens, and it never came. You never threw it again. I'm like, you really liked your swing on that one. Yeah. So I think the conviction to look for answers and then go execute and see whether or not that is there. So there's that to the conviction story.
That's brilliant. It's beautiful to listen to. Talking with Chad Durbin, episode 66, the Baseball Forward podcast. A couple more minutes here, Mr. Chad Durbin. I know you're a busy man. You know what I want to know? I want to know a little bit about Performance Pitching Academy down in Baton Rouge and what you got going on down there. Because, man, I know I saw on the old Twitter machine the other day you doing with some stuff with Alan Jaeger, who I absolutely love. Tell us a little bit about what you got going on at Performance Pitching Academy down in Baton Rouge.
So we founded it kind of as an extension of seeing that, whether it was summer or whether it was high school spring, that as much as those coaches are trying to go out and do the best they can for these kids, there's just a gap in programming. There's a gap. Kids, we realize when the most dangers exist from an arm health standpoint is when you start to feel good and you start to get on the mound early in the season, you start to rip through the ball and a little too early, get on the slope a little too early, that there's just not, and you're not working on the mechanics of it and the athleticism of it. And you don't understand where your efficiencies and deficiencies exist. And I had to learn a lot of that through my son, who's 17, about to turn 18, going to Southern Miss, like we talked about.
It's Cade, right?
Cade, yeah, Cade Durbin. So
shout out Cade.
And I'll make sure he'll listen and roll his eyes. I've heard these stories, Dad. But for him, it was okay. Well, why am I not able to do this, or what's going on here? Elbow, shoulder, thoracic. Like, what do I need to look at? Why are his pitches, on the metric side? Why is this 18 and 19 vert is good, but it's not like 25? and run on the ball, spinning it. First text I got about like metrics really was, hey, Cade's 13. Hey, he spun a curveball, a couple of them over 2,900. And I was like, is that good? I didn't know. I was so kind of, oh God, I need to go figure out this information. So as I started to, step into this world of high school pitching and kind of the travel circuit, and some of the guys I've known were stepping into pro ball and going to college and stuff like that, I needed to get better at the ledger I talked about, like my old school version of it and the new school, and how do I give these guys tools to go off onto the next level. So we created Performance Pitching Academy, and Tyler Knockin. He was the pitching coach at one of the, I think they finished second in the country and first in some polls on the high school rankings. Catholic High in Baton Rouge just tends to pump out some pretty darn good players. It's a big school, very good athletes. But he was doing the pitching over there. COVID stopped him from doing his scouting, and he was an agent for a minute. Great guy, man. Talk about a hard worker. We laugh because it's Tyler Knockin. It's spelled the same as Tyler Naquin, the hitter that's now a pitcher. We need to have him in and have Knockin on Naquin. But PPA, we program these kids in milestone tranches where, hey, I'm going to Jupiter in October. What do I need to do from July 30th until then?
Love it.
So we program it out. Hey, there's going to be a couple weeks of kind of a deload period, and then we're going to start to ramp back up. We'll get on the mound. Well, we want to work on maybe developing that slider because it's your best off-speed pitch. So we'll have a couple weeks where we focus on that in pens. Pitch development would be kind of the ID that it's called now. And then what are we going to do after that? What are we going to do after the October 14th, milestone date where you pitch in Jupiter? When does your high school season start? When does it end? When, how many times are you going to pitch a week? Hopefully just once if you're a starter. But if you're not, are you playing a position? And we factored all of it in. We're trying to do a lot of best practices with regards to med balls and mobility, stability, core, rotational power, making sure that they understand the why on the plyos, heavier plyos. That's so you can feel the mechanics and the arm path and everything. Lighter ones, we don't do a whole lot of it. I think 5 ounces is pretty good on the light side, but it doesn't mean that the science won't prove that the derivatives south of that, 4, 3, 2, that you'll get more arm speed. So we go out and we're trying to educate players, program them at a really high level. We have TrackMan and Rapsodo. We'll get Edgertronic at some point. But really, it's about getting on the same page with these kids and chasing goals and handling when they get hurt, working with PTs that send them return to throw, return to play, return to performance protocols, and, making sure that they've got a really good idea of what steps we're going to take to get back. And the parents love it because, I was a parent, and I just mentioned it, a minute ago.
Yep.
I didn't know what the heck I was looking at.
Yep.
And this is something that, and tell me, both of you, this would be something I want feedback from you on, and it might be good to reverse this here. When you go to one of these showcases, Cade went to a showcase and went to the PBR Futures, games, and man, what a great event. Yeah. But TrackMan sends you a deliverable after the fact with kind of your data, which is great. But even I was like, what the heck is VAA? What is HAA? And this was, 4 years ago, 3 years ago. Now it's very common. Everybody knows, everybody in the baseball pitching world knows it's the vertical approach angle. It's the horizontal approach angle, but I didn't know. And that was his unicorn kind of metric at the time with some other ones. And I had to reach out and talk to Zach Day, who worked with TrackMan for years. He was a first round pick. He'd be a good guy for you to interview. He's with Newt Force Mound now. He's just fantastic. But I wanted, on the deliverable side, I was like, okay, you gave us this data. Now what?
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do with it? What should we train? What should we chase? What should we eliminate? All of that stuff. So, and what do you think about that? Obviously you said, yeah, because it's like, oh, that makes sense. But what as a parent or what as a coach, what as a player would you want delivered after the fact other than just the raw data?
You know what? When I hear that, I think this, Chad, like for me, it's always dependent upon what the kid wants out of the career. Like that's it. Like whenever we talk recruiting or I had whatever conversation, I always try to get to what are we truly trying to accomplish? I heard something the other day from Jameis Winston of all people. And this guy is an amazing human being, but he said, if he could do it again, he would have dreamt bigger. Think about that. This dude won a Heisman, one of the greatest football players of his generation, quarterback, but he would have dreamt bigger. And the details, I hear you say that, and I'm like, what am I chasing? Truly, what am I chasing? I'm not chasing a number. What am I chasing specifically? If I put it in the context of Ross Hawley, I have two sons, Kaiser and Ryder. Ryder, what do you want? Kaiser, what do you want? And specifically, and I think, we all dream, hey, I want to be a big leaguer. But like as that goal gets closer, like let's talk about Cade. As the goal gets closer and it becomes a reality, it's a reality for Cade. The dude's going to Southern Miss. It's a reality. Pro ball is going to be a reality for him, most likely, if he continues to progress in track. So what specific are the goals? And then I say, okay, based on what the goals, based on what he wants, how do I take your data and I plot that on a timeline and say, this is what it needs to look like at 18, at 19, at 20. And this is kind of the wave that, like, as Coach or Alan Jaeger says, the waves, the waves of loading and deloading and all that. Like, what does the kid want? Ultimately, clearly defined as best as we can, and things can be dynamic. Yeah. But what does the kid want? And let's build a timeline to go accomplish
That's great,
what those ultimate goals are. Coach Schwanke, what do you think?
Well, I mean, just listen to Chad. It's obvious that he's a man that wants to continue to get better at what he's doing this moment, right? We used to have the questionnaire, what are your goals? I've always wanted to play at LSU. Well, guess what? That puts a cap on things in my mind, right? We wanted guys that had aspirations to go further and go beyond what we could provide them. Talk about Skip Burtman sitting in the front row watching Chad play. He sat in the front row of me watching me talk about team defense in St. Louis, Missouri at a coach clinic. And Coach Ward, we've had him, we're involved with him. He never wants to stop learning. And so as a player, if you're constantly trying to make yourself the best version of yourself, you got a chance to win at everything in life. And that's really important. Because even if you're the greatest baseball player in the world, your career ends at 35 or 36, and you have to turn yourself into a guy like Chad Durbin who wants to help kids for the rest of his life.
Amazing.
Brilliant.
That is beautiful. And Chad, seriously, that's why when I said earlier about the degree thing, hey, don't you be putting limits on yourself, man.
Because, no, not at all.
No. I Coach Schwanke, you're so right. It's because it's contagious. And it's like, what's next? Guys, I want to finish this episode of the Baseball Forward podcast with something very, very serious. I want to know what our first live concerts that we ever went to. I'm very curious to know. Chad, I don't think I asked you that, but I love music.
No, I don't think you did.
And Coach Schwanke's a huge fan of good music. I know you got some stories, Jim. But Chad, let's roll with this question. Finish up episode 66 of the Baseball Forward podcast. Chad Durbin, like, when you were growing up, what concerts do you remember going to? What was the first concert? What concerts do you remember going to?
Yeah, so I moved down at 12 years old, 13 years old, and to Baton Rouge. And obviously, there's country music everywhere, but it was a little more heavy-handed down here. And so, mowing the lawn, my buddies would be like, just put on, 101.5 or 100.7 and just listen to an hour while you're doing some, so, I mean, these kids don't even know if they're listening, but it was like, the Walkman and like to the station in a big headset over my hat while I sweated down here. But so I'm listening to music and all that stuff. And it ended up being Alan Jackson and like Dina Carter at the Baton Rouge Centroplex back in the day. And, I like all music. I ended up going to Jazz Fests and Voodoo Fests and going to some live concerts. I missed out on going to Jack Johnson was performing just for our Phillies in '09, in between the NL championship series and the World Series. And my wife ended up getting sick, and she was even telling me, "Go, I don't care, I'll be fine."
No kidding.
But I love live music. My dad plays guitar. Hell of a singer back in the day. Probably would have had a little bit more of a music career if it weren't for having me, which I guess catalyst for him having to grow up a little bit. But I just, for me, I think the talent of being able to perform on stage, it relates a little bit to what we all did.
Amen.
So yeah, I guess I went to Alan Jackson was great. I will say that it was a good concert. But seeing Dave Matthews and some of them play down at Voodoo Fest, stuff like that was really cool.
Yes, sir. I love all that music. Jim, give us one of your amazing stories of what concert you went to.
Well, the first one was, riding in the back of a El Camino to go see Blood, Sweat, and Tears in the University of Arizona. But then we got to see the Rolling Stones in the community center, and we got to see
that's crazy.
Open for, I think it was Rod Stewart, and then we got to be bouncers, for some concerts. And Charlie Daniels showed up and performed and told us all to go to this dive bar. He was in there till 4:00 in the morning, playing, just having a heck of a night. So those are about the best I could come up with.
Hey, those are very good. Those are very good. Those are very good. Well, guys, hey, Chad Durbin, man, it is always an absolute pleasure talking to you. I cannot say this more than I can mean it. You're one of the nicest guys in baseball. You're one of the most authentic guys in baseball. And the Performance Pitching Academy in Baton Rouge, what you guys are doing, amazing stuff. I encourage everybody to go follow you guys. Guys, this is a guy that you want to listen to and you want to be around. So I encourage you to go follow him on Twitter, go follow Performance Pitching Academy in Baton Rouge, and let's do this. Chad, give us a send out, and then I'll wrap up this episode of the Baseball Forward podcast.
Ross, I appreciate everything. This is I tell people to listen to your podcast. You have great snippets that you extrapolate from and post on social media. You're doing great on the baseball side. From my side, I love the game as it is now. I loved it how it was. It kills me to know that Ryan Sandberg's dead. That was my favorite player growing up. And that love of baseball came from being a latchkey kid, walking home from school, breaking into my own house, and then putting on WGN or TBS or whatever and watching games. That's how I fell in love with the game. So for me, that's kind of the send off here is, man, rest in peace, Ryan Sandberg.
Amen. Nothing else to be said. Rest in peace, Ryan Sandberg. Episode 66 of the Baseball Forward podcast. We'll see you guys next time.